In the summer of 1791, the skies of Saint-Domingue glowed red, not from the sun, but from the burning plantations. Thousands of enslaved men and women, armed with machetes and fury, launched a revolt that would shatter the French Empire's grip on the Caribbean. Saint-Domingue, the jewel of France's colonial empire, was the richest colony in the world. Its sugar and coffee fueled Europe's wealth, filling ships and vaults with unimaginable profit. But beneath the wealth lay misery. 500,000 enslaved Africans labored in the cane fields under conditions so brutal that death came quicker than freedom. Life for the enslaved was a daily war against exhaustion, hunger, and pain. They worked from sunrise to sunset, their backs bent, their hands bleeding, their bodies scarred by the overseer's whip. If they faltered, they were beaten. If they resisted, they were mutilated or killed. Disease swept through the fields, carrying many away before they saw 30. In Saint-Domingue, life expectancy for the enslaved was measured in years, not decades. Among them was a man who carried both strength and spirit, Dutty Boukman. Born in Africa, sold into bondage, he was brought across the ocean to the island. Boukman was a towering figure, feared by overseers for his defiance, respected by the enslaved for his courage. To them, the enslaved were tools, replaceable, breakable, incapable of true rebellion. But in the cane fields, in the huts at night, whispers spread, whispers of freedom. The cruelty of Saint-Domingue was unmatched. 500,000 enslaved Africans toiled under the rule of only 40,000 whites. The imbalance was staggering. Every whip crack, every act of cruelty deepened the rage simmering beneath the surface. And Boukman was the spark. In the shadows of night, Boukman gathered men and women in secret. Away from the eyes of overseers, they prayed, they planned, they dreamed of a world without chains. They invoked the spirits of Africa, blending faith and resistance into a single force. Then came the night of Bois Caiman. It was August of 1791. In a thick forest clearing under the cover of darkness, hundreds of enslaved men and women gathered. The rain fell heavy, drumming against the trees, as a fire crackled in the center. Vodou drums beat like a heartbeat, steady and unyielding. Boukman stood before them, his voice rising above the storm. He called on his people to cast aside the false god of the whites, the god who had sanctioned their slavery. Instead, he urged them to listen to the voice of liberty burning in their hearts. Around the fire, men and women swore an oath. They would rise. They would fight. They would burn the plantations to the ground. The air was electric with faith and fury. That night, the enslaved of Saint-Domingue pledged to make history. On August 22, 1791, the island erupted. Plantations burned as flames licked the night sky. The enslaved, armed with machetes, axes, and stolen muskets, surged forward. They cut down overseers, killed masters, and struck fear into the heart of the colony. Fields of sugarcane became fields of fire. Mansions crumbled in the heat. The richest colony in the world was drowning in smoke and blood. Boukman led with both blade and prayer. His words echoed across the island. Throw away the image of the god of the whites, and listen to the voice of liberty that speaks in our hearts. It was a call to arms, but also a call to dignity. For centuries, they had been treated as beasts. Now, they rose as warriors. The revolt was swift and devastating. Within weeks, hundreds of plantations lay in ashes. Thousands of white colonists were dead or fled in terror. The enslaved, once bent under whips, now stood with weapons in hand, unafraid of the empire that had enslaved them. For the French Empire, it was unthinkable. Saint-Domingue, their greatest prize, their golden colony, was slipping away. The revolt was not just a rebellion. It was an earthquake, shaking the very foundation of the colonial world. The whites responded with brutality. Soldiers were sent, militias formed, vengeance taken. But every execution, every massacre only fueled the resistance. The enslaved had crossed a threshold they could never return from. Death was certain, but freedom was worth it. Boukman did not live to see the end. Within months, he was captured by French forces. They executed him, displaying his severed head to terrorize the rebels. But instead of fear, it inspired defiance. The enslaved saw his death as martyrdom, his sacrifice as proof that their cause was just. New leaders rose, men like Toussaint Louverture, Jean-Jacques Dessalines, and Henri Christophe. They carried the revolution forward with strategy and fire. What began as scattered uprisings became a war, one of the most brutal and transformative in history. The Revolt of 1791 ignited a revolution that would last over a decade. Armies clashed, empires trembled. France, Spain, and Britain all tried to crush the movement, but they failed. The enslaved turned soldiers, the oppressed turned leaders, refused to bow. By 1804, the impossible had become reality. Haiti declared independence. It was the first Black Republic, the first nation born from a successful slave revolution. The chains were broken not by the goodwill of masters, not by foreign armies, but by the hands of the enslaved themselves. The Haitian Revolution reshaped the world. It forced nations to confront the horror of slavery, struck fear into the hearts of slaveholding societies, and inspired the enslaved across the Americas to dream of freedom. But it came at a terrible cost. Hundreds of thousands died on plantations, in battles, in massacres. The island was scarred by fire and blood. And yet, out of that devastation, a new nation was born. A nation that declared to the world that Black people were not property, not tools, but human beings with the right to liberty. History remembers Haiti's revolution as unique, but also inconvenient. Slaveholding nations feared its example, suppressing its memory. Textbooks reduced it, governments ignored it, empires tried to bury it. But it cannot be erased. The fire that began in 1791 still burns in the memory of the oppressed. This was Boukman's story, but it became the story of a people who refused to be broken. Haiti's revolution did not just shake the French Empire, it shattered the chains of slavery. And yet, so many stories remain untold. If you want to uncover more dark and hidden slave stories, watch this playlist here. And don't forget to subscribe for more haunting history. Some revolutions begin with whispers. This one began with fire.